After 7 long years of marriage, I was utterly blindsided when I discovered that my 29-year-old wife had been unfaithful with one of her closest, long-term friends. This shocking revelation came to light in mid-July, when I started sensing that something was amiss in our relationship. My suspicions grew stronger over time, prompting me to finally check her phone, a decision I had been hesitant to make until that moment. What I found were a series of intimate text messages exchanged between her and her friend, starting the day after a significant event we referred to as D-Day. Their conversations were filled with declarations like, "I love you," and they even discussed minor disagreements we had, laughing together about the things I had said. The depth of their emotional and physical connection was unmistakable and deeply heartbreaking. In an attempt to salvage our relationship, I tried to communicate that perhaps we were transitioning into a new phase of our marriage, one characterized by comfort and complacency. I suggested that our routine might have become monotonous, which is a common challenge for couples who have been together for many years. I reasoned that this might be the natural progression after several years of marriage. However, my wife was adamant that our relationship was deteriorating. Despite spending our days together engaging in meaningful conversations and maintaining a healthy sex life, she felt we had grown apart. What she didn't realize was that I was fully aware of her infidelity. Taking decisive action, I consulted with a lawyer and began preparing the necessary divorce documents. This betrayal was not the first time my wife had been unfaithful. During our courtship, she had cheated, leading to a 6-month separation as we attempted to work through our issues. Eventually, we reconciled and got married. Throughout our marriage, there were moments when the topic of her past infidelity arose. I made it clear that any future instances of cheating would lead to the end of our relationship. For 6 years, our marriage was stable and without major issues. However, about a year ago, I noticed a significant shift in her behavior. She became increasingly distant, refusing my attempts at affection. Simple gestures, like hugs, were no longer reciprocated. This emotional distance likely paved the way for her subsequent affair. Fast forward to the present day, I've been aware of her infidelity for 3 weeks and have been meticulously preparing the divorce paperwork before facing her. Initially, her demeanor was clearly disinterested in our relationship, but recently, she seems to be experiencing guilt over her actions and is showing a renewed, albeit subtle, interest in me. She's been attempting to make amends in her own way, washing dishes, cleaning the house, cooking meals, without any direct communication between us. It feels as though she's punishing herself internally. The betrayal has shattered my trust in her, causing immense emotional pain. Financially, she has been struggling, working a minimum wage part-time job that barely covers her expenses. This imbalance has left me feeling like the sole provider, further highlighting the lack of equality in our partnership. Despite everything, I still care deeply for her and value the life we built together. I'm concerned about her well-being, fearing she might spiral into a severe depression following the divorce. Divorce seems to be the only viable path forward, but I'm apprehensive about how she'll react. The prospect of her possibly reconciling with her new partner adds to my anxiety. While I recognize that divorce is necessary, I'm dreading the inevitable heartbreak, loneliness, and uncertainty that come with it. The process feels overwhelming, and I'm unsure of how to navigate the emotional and logistical challenges ahead. In an update, I mentioned that there were 3 days left before I would take drastic action. However, I realized that this timeframe might not be accurate. My lawyer informed me that preparing the paperwork would take longer than initially expected. Nonetheless, I remain resolute in my decision to proceed with the divorce, knowing that my wife will ultimately face the consequences of her actions. Last week, I shared that I had discovered my wife's infidelity, but hadn't yet confronted her, intending to organize everything beforehand. In preparation, I managed to download the entire log of her text messages with her friend, AP. To my shock, the affair was more extensive than I had initially believed. Contrary to my assumption that it began in July, it actually started in May, with another affair occurring between March and May involving unprotected intimacy with a heroin addict. In total, she has been unfaithful with 4 different men. Delving deeper into her current affair with AP, it became clear that he had been manipulating her from the start. He misrepresented our relationship by falsely claiming that I treated her poorly, which is entirely untrue. This deceit allowed him to justify his interference, convincing her that she deserved better and disparaging me as immature and irresponsible. AP fancied himself as a relationship coach, offering unsolicited advice on how to handle our relationship and mine. He would listen to her grievances about me and then provide skewed explanations or solutions, all while maintaining that he was a supportive friend. The issues that bothered her were things I was completely unaware of, as she never communicated them to me directly. AP, who has never met me, somehow believes he can accurately predict my behavior. He takes pride in his ability to control others, even boasting about his influence over a church group and his involvement in personal matters, such as helping a teenager navigate a breakup that led to the girlfriend's suicidal tendencies. Her attraction to his seemingly benevolent facade made her vulnerable to his manipulative tactics. He derogatorily referred to living with me as being in prison and insulted me despite my efforts to show her love, support, and respect every day. I must admit that I place a high value on self-improvement and believe that individuals should continuously strive to better themselves. Unfortunately, over the past decade, my wife has shown little to no effort in this regard. She is overweight, left college, and has been working a low-paying part-time job. Years ago, I encouraged her to join me at the gym or engage in any activity that could foster personal growth, but she consistently refused. For 4 years, she remained unemployed while I covered her student loans and amassed significant credit debt on her behalf. Despite my repeated requests for her to seek employment or further her education, with promises to support her endeavors, she never took the necessary steps. My growing frustration led me to criticize her lack of initiative, sometimes harshly, which was a mistake on my part. Although I ceased these criticisms a few years ago, before her affairs began, she did love me even during those difficult times. Now that I've stopped criticizing, her love seems to have vanished. I always believed marriage should be a partnership of equals, but she never aspired to that balance. Instead of mutual support, she leaned on me only when she needed something, such as support during my schooling. Her inability to address our issues directly with me forced her to seek solace and validation from AP, who provided her with the answers she wasn't getting from our relationship. Today marks the culmination of my preparations. Having thoroughly reviewed all her messages, I remain certain that she is unaware of my knowledge regarding her actions. The divorce papers are set to be filed on Wednesday, and I am eagerly anticipating the moment when I can sever ties completely. Initially, I had hoped to handle things amicably, but after reading through the extensive and manipulative texts between her and AP, my resolve to take a scorched earth approach has strengthened. I plan to confront her with the evidence, highlighting the manipulation and deceit orchestrated by AP, ensuring she comprehends the full extent of her actions. I am reaching out for support and advice on how to navigate the legal complexities of this situation. We share a beloved dog that my wife treats like a child, and I fear a costly legal battle over custody, potentially costing us both upwards of $30,000 in court and attorney fees. My strategy involves serving her the divorce papers discreetly and moving out with my belongings and our dog on the same day, before she has a chance to react. However, I reside at school and need to return by September, complicating this plan. Additionally, the volume of her text messages with AP is extensive, around 100 pages, making the situation even more intricate. In a subsequent update, I clarified that the 3-day countdown was premature, as obtaining the necessary paperwork took longer than expected. Now, with the documents in hand, everything is falling into place. I intend to have her served within the next week. Remarkably, my soon-to-be ex-wife remains completely oblivious to my awareness of her infidelity and my ongoing plans for separation. Throughout the past month, I've maintained a facade of normalcy, acting cheerful, purchasing gifts for her, and engaging in casual conversations, despite the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. Her failure to change her passwords and her continued casual references to AP as just a friend indicate her ignorance of the impending separation. Managing my emotions has been challenging, especially when she speaks about him, but I remain focused on the necessary steps to end this chapter of my life. We recently had a significant argument about our relationship, during which I confronted her about her numerous poor choices without revealing that I was fully aware of her affairs. I expressed that she no longer loved me, and that my interest in her had waned over time. This confrontation served as a cover for my true intentions, allowing me to distance myself emotionally. Since then, I have been the only one putting effort into our relationship, and with my awareness of her infidelity, I have no incentive to continue investing in a relationship that is fundamentally broken. Despite her attempts to show remorse and a desire to mend things, her efforts feel insufficient and too little too late. The situation has deteriorated to the point where she must now face the consequences of her actions on her own. Her infidelity stems from feeling that her role as the central figure in my life was being undermined. The significant attention and happiness she derived from our relationship were being diverted, leading her to seek validation and attention elsewhere instead of communicating her needs and frustrations with me directly. Ironically, the men she chose for her affairs do not prioritize her either. One consistently ignored her, while the other, a youth pastor with an ex-wife and child, maintained that his responsibilities would always take precedence. Despite their claims of having a special bond, his actions, such as planning to co-parent with his ex and being seen with other women, clearly demonstrate that she is not his top priority. This inconsistency baffled me, especially considering that she couldn't handle my commitment to my studies and personal growth. As of today, following our intense argument, she decided to stay with her parents for a few weeks to clear her mind, which simplifies the situation for me. I no longer have to worry about her refusing to leave or causing further conflict. Unbeknownst to her, I have arranged for the divorce papers to be served the day after she arrives at her parents' home, giving me a week to finalize everything. While I'm eager for the separation to conclude, it also means I won't see my dog for another week, a heartbreaking thought, as we share a deep bond. Despite special circumstances that make it impossible for me to retain custody, the impending loss is something I dread profoundly. In a decisive move, I successfully served her with the divorce papers, catching her completely off guard and leaving her devastated. Although I had discovered her multiple affairs over a month ago, I chose not to confront her immediately. Instead, I meticulously planned the separation to minimize personal complications. Over the past month, I maintained a facade of normalcy, remaining cheerful, buying her gifts, and engaging in everyday conversations, while secretly preparing all the necessary steps for the divorce. This included hitting the gym to manage stress, drafting legal documents, compiling over 450 pages of incriminating messages, setting up a new bank account, and persuading her to stay with her parents temporarily. Every aspect of the plan unfolded as intended, even predicting her and her family's reactions. I took control of our finances by freezing my credit card and transferring half of our funds to the new account. Upon delivering the papers, she left with her mother, to whom I simply said, "Take care of yourself." The following morning, a process server arrived at her parents' home to formally deliver the divorce papers. She was entirely unaware of my knowledge and plans, and her parents had no inkling of the situation either. The surprise left her hysterical, though I hadn't spoken to her directly about it. Her mother reached out to me, forcing me to explain the situation in general terms. It's frustrating that I can't discuss my personal relationship with her wife privately, as her mother now mediates on her behalf. Despite having a good relationship with my mother-in-law, who had previously encouraged my wife to work on our marriage, both of them seem incapable of handling the situation maturely. Throughout the process, I maintained composure and handled everything with tact, despite my emotions. However, when my mother-in-law suggested that I handle retrieving my wife's belongings, such as packing her clothes and driving them 4 hours to return to her, it became clear she was attempting to manipulate me. I firmly declined, emphasizing that it wasn't my responsibility, and warned her against trying to manipulate me further. I made it clear that I could take legal actions, such as proving her infidelity, which would incur significant costs for both of us, and even claim theft of our dog. Additionally, I could expose AP's misconduct to his employer, jeopardizing his position as a youth pastor. My efforts to keep the process affordable and straightforward were met with resistance, but she conceded and agreed to collect her belongings herself. I anticipate they might now seek legal representation to contest dog custody, the primary point of contention. Navigating this ordeal has been emotionally draining. Her mother continues to defend her, trying to justify her multiple affairs and portraying her actions as acceptable despite her continued relationship with AP. The situation is further complicated by suggestions from others that my wife might have borderline personality disorder, which could explain her extreme reactions over seemingly insignificant matters. Her inability to handle the situation maturely and her reliance on her mother for mediation highlight her unstable mental state. I struggle with the desire to protect myself while grappling with the reality that I've been financially supporting her without receiving the same effort in return. The constant manipulation attempts and the lack of open, honest communication make this separation feel insurmountable. Looking back, I realize that my wife and her mother have allowed external influences to dictate their actions and perceptions of our relationship. Her mother, in particular, has been instrumental in persuading her to present a false narrative about our marriage, making it nearly impossible to discuss our personal issues privately. This has only deepened the confusion and frustration on my part, as I struggle to reconcile my genuine efforts to maintain a loving and supportive relationship with her apparent indifference and deceit. 2 years after the divorce, I've received occasional messages inquiring about how things turned out. In summary, everything turned out well. The separation was clean, with absolutely no communication or lingering issues. Both of us moved on with our lives. She continued living in her parents' guest bedroom, secured a low-wage job, and remained inactive in other aspects of her life. On the other hand, I graduated, secured a stable job, and relocated, leading a fulfilling life. Despite having to part with my beloved dog, who remains with her, I have found happiness and love again with someone special who appreciates and reciprocates my affection. Financially and emotionally, I have thrived, while she remains stuck in her previous circumstances. Ultimately, I emerged from the situation stronger and unscathed, having built a better life for myself.